It's a maybe. If the plan Raiders are the biggest towards that. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Ready when you are, Jerry.
Okay. Well, it's 5:30 and we'll call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. And we'll start with attendance. We have Aaron, Randy, Mary, me, and OB here. We're missing two, Sarah and Megan. Normally we would do ex parte communications and disclosures next, but first we're gonna have a conversation with the Grand County Attorney Stephen Stocks. For those of you that don't know him, I think they'll do this.
Excellent. So we're just gonna have a conversation today. I want to talk to you. We're gonna cover three areas: reviewing applications, disclosures, and then knowing your role as commissioners. Number one, the reason why we have ex parte communication limitations is when we get the application in, we want to view the application on its own. We don't want to take information that we don't know about or information in the community. So you're entering into a limited knowledge universe. You don't get to use what you had heard down the street or about something else. And the reason why we have the disclosures is we have the disclosures so everybody's on the same plane. And so it's really important to know when you're reviewing.
Started.
Oh, yes, I'm just explaining the ex parte, the rules of ex parte communication and when we look at applications. And so if you have any questions, I want anybody to interrupt me and we can kind of just talk about the three topics I'm going to go through. One is reviewing applications. Number two is disclosures. And number three is knowing your role as commissioners. So number one, when we get the application in, that application has been provided to you through the planning commissioner, or sorry, through Mr. Jackson's office, and it will contain what the packet should contain. It's for you guys to consider in this body, in this room, out loud verbally. There is the temptation, and this happens at times, to text somebody or to ask a question or to pass notes, but the goal is to have the information be out in the sphere and out in the open. And the reason why is when we play back the video, when we look at things, if I'm writing a note and maybe I'm talking to Jerry about whether he's tried City Market's new sushi, the applicant might not know that. And they might think that I've just told him he better vote this down or vote this up or else. And so we want to be really mindful about the temptations that exist and the possibilities, because again, under OPMA and under ex parte, we're supposed to have the discussion here in person. We're supposed to be able to view it and go through it.
And I just a quick question, which is, I try to avoid this as much as possible, but occasionally a citizen will come up to you.
Yes.
And they will say something like, you know, I did mention this in the ex parte community, you know, they're going to put up this big water tower on our land. There's a lot of people that are concerned about this, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I try to not get engaged in that conversation. But in that particular case, I came and said, there's nothing that's not in her letter that she sent to all the commissioners, but I wanted you to know I had this conversation. Is that roughly the right way to handle it?
Exactly. It's a perfect way to handle it. Now, conversations might be minimal, like, hey, I heard about application from company X, you should vote that down.
Yeah.
That is different than, hey, I heard that company X, once they get approved, they're going to do this. I think the more substantive information that you get, the more obligation that you have to come forward and say. If it's weighing on you and you're like, man, I would normally vote for this, but I think this other information really weighs on my conscience. If it's something like that, that needs to be shared, because then the applicant, the citizens, and everybody else have an opportunity to correct the record, because it might be something that's unfair. It might be the company X was gonna, murder dogs on there, and that's not true. And so you say that, hey, I think that they're gonna do X on the density, that they're gonna increase it, or whatever issue it may be. Well, you put it out there, and then the nice thing is, if the applicant comes and corrects it, well, then we've got really good evidence that they knew ahead of time that this was where their application was going to be limited, and then they can clean and clear that up. Sometimes there's something you might want to know about the application, and the best way to do that is to communicate in this room about that issue that you're seeing in the application. There's a difference between an incomplete application and an application that has all of the information, but there's something that you, based on a read of the code or based on the read of the application, are curious about and are concerning enough to you that you want to bring that question up to Mr. Jackson and flesh that issue out. So that's really important, and making sure that we're looking at this on its merits. We have a wide breadth of experience on the planning commission here. Sometimes for some, it might be like, of course, we've heard this. But folks, if you have questions on this stuff, you can reach out to Andrew, you can reach out to myself. I can help put you in contact with Bart. But for the most part, trust your gut. If there's an issue that comes up and you feel like you are receiving information that other people don't know, or if somebody tells you information and says, hey, the public doesn't know this, then it's really important for you to disclose that. Another thing is be cautious on site visits, be cautious on inviting information on your own. That's another place where you can get in kind of a harder spot, because if the applicant says, hey, you're welcome to come out to the property, and you go out to the property and have a conversation with them, well, that's information that the rest of the group doesn't have or doesn't know. And your view and retelling of it might not be the same as it is to a different person. So the goal is, how do we put everybody on the same playing field when reviewing this application? That's what the overall goal is. That's what ex parte communication and disclosures is about.
May I ask you a question on that one? Because recently I had a developer ask multiple times for me to go out to the property. And I was very uncomfortable with that.
Yes.
And
You're in a slightly different.
Not the ex parte.
I understand, but I'm just kind of giving a just generalizing.
Yes.
Is that appropriate for me to say, I'm really not comfortable with that?
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, wearing your commission hat,
Yeah.
you have extra latitude.
Right.
The one thing that puts both the commissioners in a different spot is you need to be mindful of how you share that information with the planning commission. And that's where it's a really tricky spot to be a liaison. And that's why in the past there's been a little bit of heartburn about full participation. But again, Bart and I looked back and reviewed it and said that we can't read the code. If other commissioners show up, they get to be public and you guys get to be a part of the discussion. I just think that for commissioners, you guys do have that ability to do a little bit more, but it would be really difficult if you guys come back and then start sharing information that's outside the scope of the application. And that's where you guys will have to use your discretion and judgment to handle it. But you can turn down, commissioners can turn down going to sites. And then again, if you go to sites, it's also that question about disclosures and propriety and everything else. So best course of action, if uncomfortable, disclose. Utah is a big disclosure state. It is better to over disclose than to under disclose on just about anything. So any other questions on the application and that process? Okay. Next is going on to the disclosure itself. Very easy. You can do it at the beginning of your meeting. You just say, hey, I've got a disclosure. Here's the basis of the disclosure. If somebody's forwarding you documentations via email and you've reviewed those documents, you can forward those documents on. Not all of the time we would just put those into the packet. We don't want to create that nightmare. If somebody starts sending you stuff to your private or to your email for P&Z, talk to Andrew, he'll loop me in, and then we'll pick what's going to go into it, because we don't want people to use the full disclosure requirement part of the process to have a roundabout way of providing additional information of the
Just to
planning
be
commission.
super clear here.
Yes.
If I'm talking to Rob or I'm talking to anybody on this council,
Mhm.
is that ex parte?
Not
If I'm
normally.
talking to one of the commissioners on this, not a county commissioner,
Yes,
but one of the planning commission members
Yeah.
about something,
it depends.
is that ex parte? Because
It depends.
I want to be careful how that looks.
Yeah, it depends what you're talking about. Hey, what's your vote gonna be on this particular topic? Let's say, for example, we have an item before you guys, and for whatever reason, it gets continued to a different day. If you're deliberating, if you're engaging in deliberation with them, you call up Aaron and say, hey, application 2 looks kind of okay, but if application 3 gets through, that would be a good deal, that conversation, no, not appropriate. Can you talk generally about what your plans are for the county or what you'd like to see in the county? Sure. I would just encourage you to limit conversations about.
Stay off of particular.
Exactly. Because that's
Application.
part of deliberation.
Application should be done here,
Correct.
nowhere else.
Correct. But if there's some things you want to see, like, hey, I was looking at the ex parte communication section in the bylaws and I think it'd be neat to change that. I think that's okay. I think that's something that you can work on and make a recommendation to the county commission about items like that.
Right.
But whenever we're communicating with other people, it's always smart to know what you're talking about because people in this community are really, really vested and really excited about topics that I would never guess that they'd get excited about. And so what happens is they see you and Aaron going out for coffee, and then somebody overhears that somebody said something about a rezone. Is that the rezone of blah, 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 blah? And then people freak out, and then I get letters, and then I have to come and sit down and explain some of these parts.
Won't we take an Aaron to coffee then? You bet, man.
Well, but you guys can talk about a lot of the things. You folks are more knowledgeable about this stuff than a lot of people. And so you have that insight and wisdom. It's not a bad thing to talk about goals and changes and things like that. But if it's before you want to be exceptionally cautious on not making a decision ahead of time and keeping an open mind. And you want to be cautious about not communicating beyond the scope of, just the smaller things, not getting into the meat of it. And that's the deliberation part. And that turns into an open violation where these discussions and these things have to be done in an open and public meeting. What is open means people get to hear them, have access to them. And what is public, well, that's the public part. But that's why when you're communicating, it's verbal. It's not text messages, it's not writing notes, it's not Morse code. It's, hey, these are my thoughts on it. I want to say this.
Makes sense.
So, and then another thing that ties onto that is you cannot predetermine the outcome of a particular action item on a particular meeting. And this is something that probably doesn't come up in this realm, but commissioners, you can't get together and say, hey, I'm going to vote yes on 1, no on 2, yes on 3, no on 4. Because again, it has to be that deliberation process that public has elected and has been appointed to do is do the public's work in the light of it. So that's those two. Any other questions on deliberation or on disclosures? Yes.
I actually have 2 questions. Okay, you said it's our job to do the public's work in the light of day.
Yes.
It's so hard to not listen to the public. You know what I'm saying? Like, I always thought I could call my county commissioner and be like, hey, can I talk through this issue with you? What are you feeling? And now I'm not like so sure if I should even go to an elected official and have a discussion about an issue. After being on this commission,
Well, and there's a carve out. His example was with another planning commission member. Now, the hard thing about having discussions on these things is you have a set of information that's been given to you, right? And you have that information. When you start communicating with the elected, they might have different information than what you have. And that's the risk that you run. They might all of a sudden bring in, well, I heard that they're gonna put a Burger King there if that happens. Well, but then you don't know if that's true or not. So if you have that discussion with them about what their thoughts are on this particular application, then you put yourself in an interesting position because now you have to come here and say, well, I didn't mean to, but I talked to Commissioner X and Commissioner X informed me that there's going to be a Burger King and all these other things that are coming in. And then we have to go back through the applicant to see what's true and what's not true. And so I think generally, can you talk to commissioners about what their philosophies and ideas are and what things that they would like to see happen? That's a different conversation than this application on the Smith subdivision. If there's a Smith subdivision, I'm not talking about that, just an example. But on the Smith subdivision, I'd love to see this. That's a different conversation to say, hey, as a commissioner, I'd really like to see more density and I'd like to see more layering between commercial operations and residential operations. Those are different conversations. It may be that the Smith property has that set up, and maybe that's a project that they would like. But you don't want to get in a position where you're saying, hey, Commissioner, how should I vote on this particular topic? Because then it takes away your open deliberation
sure.
and again, the access.
And I guess I kind of also meant like, I thought as a planning commissioner, it was going to be my job to like listen to members of the community and hear what does the community want? Do they want a subdivision here? Do they want a rezone there? Or is that not our job as planning commissioners to take?
Yeah, on some of the applications, you're going to consider external factors, and other factors you're not going to consider external factors. There'll be different items where you need to make findings. You need to look at whether this fits in the neighborhood. But there are other ones that you do not have discretion on. And when those come up, Andrew will talk to you about the limitations on those.
And also, one thing that I've done with people when they ask me questions about projects, whatever outside, I'll just say those great comments to make at the meeting. Even when I was just out there waiting for the county commission to open up out of executive session on the advocated extension, I had several people that came up to me asking me questions about it, and I just said, the public meetings here in just a few minutes, ask those questions and make those comments in there. Sorry, this is how it is.
Yeah.
And then I guess with the county commissioners, if it's an administrative item, such as a minor subdivision, do they lose their ability as legislators to discuss those if it's administrative?
Who are you applying, the planning commission or the county commission?
I'm sorry, the county commission, yeah, too many commissions.
Do they lose their, if it's just administrative? Yeah.
Yeah, if it's a minor subdivision, they have to act just like the
Correct.
planning commission on it because
Correct.
it's administrative, not legislative.
Correct. They have limitation that applies to them. It's, yeah. There are different types of applications. If it's just an administrative review, then you're more limited on it. But the planning commission unfortunately doesn't have as much flexibility as your county commissioners do. They can go out and get a lot of information on a wide breadth of topics. You folks are at times limited to just looking at the application that you have in front of you and only viewing it in that universe. And if you do have questions, you can reach out to Andrew. There may be some more flexibility that he has with planning commissioners, and Bart and I were discussing about the ability to talk to Andrew. We think it's fine to talk to Andrew about applications. That's something that you guys can talk to him about. But remember, his job is to review, pack, and prepare the application. And you folks are reviewing the application. You're not Andrew's supervisor. You're not able to write him up or do anything like that. And instead, he's helping provide and explain some of the information that he has.
And I've a few times already, I've had discussions on if it was Aaron or someone else. And I was like, that's a really good point. And I think all the other commission members will have that same thing. So I send that out either in email or emails what I usually do just because I don't know if it should be in the meeting as well.
The one tricky thing whenever, and sometimes, I don't know, I keep calling it county commission. Sometimes county commission, when we provide the county commission with advice and information, the hard and tricky thing, and they've done phenomenal with this, but it's not an invitation for dialogue. It is information to them. It's not an invitation for them to deliberate the item on an email chain because it's not open and public process. And so sometimes we're sending out information. If we're really concerned, sometimes we'll blind carbon copy. So there's not that temptation of hitting reply all and then engaging in, I want tacos instead of pizza or whatever it is. Usually the discussion's not on that, but that's one of the things to avoid some of those issues.
We had that conversation last week, not doing reply alls.
Yes, because then that opens up a whole can of worms, especially if you guys have a quorum on there and you guys do have a virtual or telephonic appearance rules that can create some issues. So just be mindful of that. For the most part in your day-to-day life, you're not going to, no one here intentionally is planning on breaking the rules, the bylaws. But the reason why we want to make sure everybody knows is because when there's slip-ups on this and the attorneys aren't informed, people aren't informed, then it results in lawsuits or requests for information. And then we have to go back and do more training and more explanation about these things. There's nothing here that I've seen, there's nothing that anybody's done that's bad, but these are things that we follow up and give trainings and remind folks in the process. The hard thing is we don't have a great example because a lot of these things don't come up very often. But if you guys have questions, reach out to my office. We can kind of walk you through some of these things. And yeah, that's all I really had for you guys, just on ex parte disclosures and.
Are you all fit?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Just a question. So sometimes people come talk to me about things, and if I think it's like going over in their mind, and I say, hey, let's bring this up at the planning commission.
Yeah, and
I know there can be some discussion with the, say, Randy and I or Randy and you.
Yeah.
But could he go over to the librarian and start talking about things? maybe somebody at the roadwork shed? Because this thing is it ex parte mean any employee of the county? Or is it specific?
So if we're looking in the context of ex parte, so Bart and I were chatting about this. We think communication with you is fine. If they want to come to you and talk to you about these items, I think that's fine. I think the difficulty is when you go outside of that scope. So if you go and say, hey, I got the report from the roads department or whoever, I'm gonna go investigate this myself. And you go to the roads department, you trudge up information. That's not necessarily the thing that we want. If there's an issue with the roads department or want more information, it's time to go through Andrew and find that information out. Do I think that they should be openly discussing the applications with random individuals in the community? No, there's a restriction on here that says maintain public impartiality. So you don't want to be out there speaking on a particular application and then somebody to think that, oh, you're no longer impartial, you hate applications from the Smith family or whatever it is. So being mindful about what you're thinking about, I think you can have a lot of conversations if you are handling them in the right way. If I look at a subdivision in a particular neighborhood, I can get a feel without naming that application and saying, hey, how do people generally feel about this? The difficulty is when we're getting exactly on a specific application and saying on this one, I'm gonna go to their house, I'm gonna measure their property and do these things. That's what we don't want. So I think that's it. Anybody have any questions on your guys' role as the planning commission members? It's a lot to take in the beginning, but more time that goes, it gets more confusing than
And that's what's a response?
Your responsibility is to fairly and impartially weigh applications and land use sort of changes there. While providing input based on your late area.
Years ago, we had one where a person had applied for an apartment, but it's like a duplex. And it really wasn't fitting in the zone or anything like that, but he went to a couple of planning commission members and said that his mother-in-law that can need replacement and all this kind of stuff and everything, so they had to have this in order to do that. He didn't bring that up at any meetings. I don't know if it's true or not, but he did do that with planning commission members, so that brings in the.
I got a question. I was kind of talking with them about a study that they have coming up.
Yeah.
And if I mean, it's their study, right?
Yeah.
Like, do I have to be like, yeah, I talked to like Ben Mustin about their study?
Well, is it in relation to, is it just?
Yeah, like sort of water, like our water issue. I actually haven't talked to him yet. I haven't.
But that's a general item that's impacting all just the general, it's not because of a Smith application, if you're looking at what's the report.
No, it's not the.
No, I think
our
that's-
water thing.
I think that's fine to look
That's fine.
it up and to have that access.
Yeah.
That information.
Like you can talk, like what he was saying, like I can talk to county employees and be like, hey, what do you? think
Yeah,
about
but
it?
that's different than on a particular application. I think you can get reports and information that the county is putting out regarding important and critical changes to the community, be it reports on roadways and impacts that those have. And something as water,
Right,
all of those things, I think they could be relevant in how they weigh into certain items. But it's avoiding just on focusing in on one particular item. I think that's.
you're more worried about subdivisions and upzones and stuff.
I'm more worried about individual particularized applications.
So something came before us and you went to Quissa to determine if they have the water rights.
Right, on an application.
Yes.
right?
Yeah, but if it's.
But not like our water thing.
Yeah, if
like-
we're talking about water in the general plan, and it's like, what volume do we have, whatever.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have on that.
Okay, thanks, Stephen.
Yep.
So we are gonna take a break at 6. for citizens to be heard. That's 5 minutes away. Do we have anybody online?
Nobody's online.
If somebody joins in the next 5 minutes, can you
Absolutely.
give us a go? And let's move on then to ex parte communications and disclosures. Does anybody have any for today's meeting? We'll move on to the approval of the meeting minutes for, let's do February 9th first. Anybody have any comments or any changes to February 9th?
You don't want to read some.
I wasn't here. I know.
I move to approve the minutes of the February 9th.
Second that.
All those in favor? How many did we have? Yes. Anybody opposed?
Yes, I was gonna abstain because I think I've seen that.
You still can, if you want to abstain.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think I'll abstain because I don't think
Okay.
I don't think I saw them.
They're buried in the pack. They're in there. I don't know.
I
what
did
they-
get a packet for today.
Okay.
You probably, I think I have had trouble getting things from you.
The civic portal didn't work last night. Because I went to read
I didn't
nothing.
get back.
This is the first time I've seen.
I used the state.
I don't know what's going on. I kind of thought.
Any different way.
Maybe after I get it published, I can just send out an email with it attached.
That'd be really, that'd be nice. Very
You
easy.
send me an email, I'll get it. If you-
I think I
That's
got
what-
spoiled at first because you were doing that, and I don't know how to find it if it doesn't come to me yet.
It's okay.
So, okay, I will ask one of your kids.
All right.
You guys
So we got,
6.
yeah, we got four okays and 1 abstain. Actually, 2 abstain. I wasn't there. 1, 2, 3, we had 4 opposed and 2 abstain. And then on to February 23rd.
I move that we approve the minutes from February 23rd.
Okay, all those in favor? So are you gonna abstain?
I guess I am, because I'm so sorry I haven't seen it.
We had 5 and 1 this time. So- All right, and we are at 5:57. We still have nobody online.
Nobody online.
Your folks, did you want to speak at the citizens to be heard portion of the meeting?
No.
Okay.
Just here for support.
Water.
Okay. All right, so if we get nobody joining here in the next 3 minutes, we'll.
Or change that to residents to be heard.
Yeah.
But you can't be a citizen of the.
Yeah, it didn't even show up on the agenda, the so yeah, it is for residents to hear. Okay. I'll pay more attention to the
My
agenda.
5th grade history teacher.
That's great. All right, county commission update.
I have one, but do you want me to go and then if you want to add?
Sure.
Okay.
We maybe have Steven, so he doesn't have to stay around. We've got that one. Are you?
Fine, I'm fine.
I'm multi-player. I think things that will be of interest to you, we did have a Board of Equalization. This was from the County Commission meeting on March 3rd. And there was two entities actually asking for county tax exemptions. One was the National Ability Center. That one was postponed, and the other was Wabi Sabi at their new location. And that was actually denied 5-2. They didn't meet the requirements under state code. And again, it's on this vacant property. So I just thought you guys might find that of interest. And if you have questions, Stephen's here to help. Mark Stilson came from the Colorado River Authority, and I might recommend you guys, if you're interested, watch his presentation. Couple of the statistics that just kind of stood out to me is currently we're at 68% for precipitation basin-wide, Colorado River basin-wide. Powell, currently Lake Powell is sitting at 25% of normal. The inflow into Lake Powell is at 52% of average. So when we talk about water, those were really interesting statistics. And again, I recommend he was right at the beginning of that meeting, watching that presentation if it's of interest to you. We had the Cane Creek Echo Canyon plat extension, and the decision that came from, I guess I would say from council is this it was moot, so no action was taken. If you guys have questions, again, Stephen is here. We had the Bays subdivision final plat that was approved 7-0. The Edge of Sage minor subdivision that was approved 7-0. I call it the Francis minor subdivision. Hopefully you're okay with that. And that was approved 7-0. So do you guys have, and Brian, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, a couple of things here. We also passed the impact fees, which this group will be, will impact what we do here at this meeting as well. And then we had a presentation on nuclear energy education and the opportunity to have a community outreach. So the state is going to be providing an outreach program, and they're going to be getting with the county to have community outreach to people about what's happening in the world of nuclear energy. There was also a funding letter of support for the Holyoke Tap project. And then there was a letter of intent for the easement on the Colorado River bike path up by Raptor State Park. Let's see, that's about it for that. Also, I was just in a housing subcommittee, and we kind of just went over a couple of the goals that we've set for 2026 for 2026 as well. So I'm sure that we'll be having those come out here pretty soon. The pipeline study that we had commissioned, we should be seeing some action off of that. And we got the housing loan ordinance passed. Is that an ordinance or a resolution last year?
It was a resolution.
The resolution, yeah, okay, so yeah, that got passed last year, so we went over a couple of things that we had done last year and starting to move forward into 2026.
One question on the impact fees, when do those take effect? Because I'm gonna have to update for the building department to collect those. Check with Dana.
Yeah, I think it's like 45 days after, but I'm not.
Okay, thank you. No residents online, it's
Okay,
6:02.
great, thanks, Lisa. Brian, do you, since this is your part of the update, Andrew, you and I had a discussion about MFR 45 last week as well. Do you want to just give a short summary to the team here?
We've got it on and we've got maps as well. Maybe I'd like to. Maybe here's.
Yeah, we just went over, where MFR 45 would be possible, kind of where it's at, if it's worth putting in the effort. And I think we have the HDHO on the agenda a little bit later, and we can kind of talk about, some of the places where it might fit in better as either a 30 or a 35. So.
Yeah, perfect, thanks. All right, anything else?
Impact fees, they don't take effect until 90 days after.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for the county commission update. On to general business, and only thing we have on there are 3 discussion items. The first one is the one that Stephen is staying around for. Its conflicts between land use code and county operations. And Andrew, do you want to lead off?
Yeah, I just passed those out to everybody. There's 2 sheets, one that has a couple of words redlined in it, and then the other one is the full text of the planning commission organization. So
it's the one with red on 8.1.3 organization on the house.
And then the other one that looks like it, that's 8.1. One is the full article, and the 8.1 is just part of what talking about. So, upon legal review of the latest code, a couple of conflicts between the code and current county operations have been identified. That's one of the things I always like to do when I come into a community, working with them on their planning and zoning, is ask them how they do things, and then see if how they do things and how the code says they should do things match up. So for instance, I went to a community, this is completely truthful. I went to community and asked them how many sets of plans they need for the building permit, and they said 5. Okay, who do they go to? The planner, building inspector, county engineer, public works, and then they throw the other one away. So why do you throw the other one away? Well, because the code says you have to have 5. This takes a code to form. So as we see those things, we say, okay, this is how we're doing it. Does it work that way, or other changes that need to happen? And the first is that the code only permits the one commission liaison, and we have two. And then the second thing is that the qualifications of a planning commission member state that a candidate must be a resident of Grant County and registered to vote. That's not on our planning commission board application. So if you feel that's still something that you would want to have, is to make sure the planning commission member was registered to vote, then we'll keep that in the text of the code and we'll modify the application. So then we have this one pager with the red few words with red line on there. And then that this is where Commissioner Pace and I have worked to come up with a few wording changes based off of Mr. Stock's emails. Essentially, we've got our 7 regular members and says the county commission may appoint 1 or more non-voting ex officio member or members. That makes that change. And then on D, at the very bottom, each planning commission member shall be resident and each voter will be continually for at least 2 years. So those are the discussion.
And just a little bit more information for everyone, where the conflict occurs, where it states county commission members in the original code section, it just had 1 in the land use code. County commission is selected to have 2 on there. The attorney's office doesn't bring this up to state a preference. We think status quo is fine. We're not suggesting any sort of change. But when we see these issues, we're like the dog that brings in the bird. There it is for you guys. Sometimes it's an issue, sometimes it's not. But the land use, it should be in harmony with what Grand County's practices are. So our recommendation be to do what's necessary to come into compliance with what the practice is. And then we don't express an opinion regarding 2-year qualification for registered voter or not. That's something for the board to decide. But where there's conflict, it's best practice to clean up that conflict and resolve that. So.
Yeah, can I bring something else? The state code also says, and I don't know when it's changed, excuse me, that at least 1 member and no more than 2 members expire each year. And that's in the state code.
That's the planning commissioners.
Mhm.
This just deals with the liaisons.
I know, but our planning commission recently just went 3 people. And I don't know when it changed, it was always 2.
There was the reason why the 1, I'm trying to remember, there was a resignation that triggered. But yeah, I mean, if it's something that you guys had looked to stagger terms, it would take a term either being cut short or a term to stagger. But that's something that could be done as well.
And that's on the second page that you have, and it's B1, so 8.3, 8.1. B1.
About halfway there.
What was that number again? Oh, I see. B1. And it looks like we're not in compliance with that now.
It's
Yeah. We're not.
And
That was, looks like it was superseded in 2019.
The 17-27A301.
So you're the code that,
Let me see.
1779.
yeah, exactly, the 301, yeah, that was superseded in 2019.
We'll see. Let me
I just printed it out.
let's say,
Started.
so we're good.
Yeah, no.
I'm happy to look into it. I got that one. Let me.
This is under the historical code section.
Yeah, and I'll pull up that and look at with what replaced it, but I'll make a note of that.
I don't know when it got, something I noticed.
Oh, wonderful.
The 1727A was replaced last fall.
Okay.
With 70 minutes. So 27 days, 70.
That's the one I made copies from.
Now, I can look at it and I can follow up and come back to you guys this meeting.
I mean, I don't know that it's a big deal, it's just that we're, since we're changing everything else.
No, it'd be good to address everything we can. Yeah, I'll put it on my queue and then I'll circulate an email with Andrew and look it out.
Okay.
And if anybody ever has items like this, let me know, shoot me an email. I pretty much live around my email, so you guys can get a hold of us. Me. And I'll give it to Bart if he wants for
Is that Bob's
So-
job?
We actually have two proposals that, or two items that Andrew brought up. One of them is the change that's in red. And the other one has to do with the residency of 2 years and registered voter, which has not been on the application, so as no, I don't know if we're in compliance today or not, but I guess the question there is, do we want to amend that? So there's two amendments that are proposed here, or out for discussion here. Does anybody have any discussion on the one that's highlighted in red? Pros or cons or?
Go ahead, please.
Did you had your-
I just had a comment, if we change, because if you look at your application on the website, it's for every office, it's not specific to
How did
planning.
it work?
So I don't know how that would work,
I thought the one from,
Application for planning commission,
separate,
so it's not posted on the website then, or?
just one application, not specific. You can probably scroll down. Probably has a pop down bar or something like that you can pick which board you're wanting to. Is that how it works?
and then that, where that information. Oh, that's probably a good idea.
While we're on that subject, I would like to, if I could, Mr. Chairman. I think that's a smart idea, is to have voters on here. Is there anyone that currently got appointed on the board that's not a registered?
The first one is actually very good. The first one that I wanted to bring up was rules
The red
with the red line.
Oh,
So I think that one's pretty easy and let's fill it if we can. Sarah, did you have a comment?
Well, I just have some questions, like we had two members of the county commission here. And I think the conversation is, do we want more than one? Is that right, the conversation? How many boards does this county have? There is like a board on aging, there's an airport board, there's a board, like, are you guys, is it overwhelming to the county commission? Are you like, we have enough? You know,
We discussed all that, at the first meeting of the year, or that chose boards.
okay,
So we all picked and said, okay, we can have this.
okay.
And I believe two people wanted to be on. Now, this is terrible to say, but I think the planning commission is a very special important board. It does do a lot of good work in terms of forwarding stuff. Every week or two, every 2 weeks, it often goes up to the county commission. So I think it's fine for me anyway.
Well, for me, I'm opposed to having more than one cook in the kitchen. Because the idea might come up and I don't know who is first or who's on it. But I think one is plenty. What it does, if you have a conflict, if you have a really serious conflict, you've handicapped the commission, the county commission, not this board. You've handicapped them. Let's say that we get into a conflict legal where we've got two that are out. You've just put 5 people because those two may be excluded from something if we had a huge conflict. One is why you have one liaison, so that you do not handicap that.
So
And that's why the
I don't
statute is that
understand the
way.
handicap at all.
So if
Could
there's-
you go into more depth on that?
If there's like an appeal of something from here that doesn't go to our administrative judge.
Yeah.
But it's something that the county commission appeals to, or something that comes here from a zone change. And then goes there and you've got county commissioners. Not voting, but expressing how they feel, yes or no on the project. Then when that person goes to the county commission, they don't have a clean slate. They have two people who've sat through the debate and deliberations, and then they're going to a board that may not.
That's correct. Maybe we should ask
But you-
Stephen. for
It could be
clarification
absolutely
on-
construed that the commissioners were part of the decision.
But you still have
Here
a
and-
quorum and you still have an odd number, so I don't know.
So is, if we're making deliberations in public here about, say, some application. And these two county commissioners were sitting here through the deliberation, of course, they had a chance to speak. Does that necessarily exclude them from deliberations and voting at the county commission level?
No. The commissioner has a lot of different boards, and wear a lot of different hats, just because they support the position of a particular item in a lower level doesn't make it so they can't vote here. And so there are, I mean, they have restrictions here, and so I don't see that the participation alone wouldn't be a disqualifying factor. And in fact, it takes a lot to disqualify a commissioner from an item. You have to have a restricted conflict of interest, and so it's a much higher bar. Now, if they were originally conflicted on the item here, then of course they'd be conflicted on the item later.
It's a whole different story.
Yeah, I mean, they're only, again, my brain thinks in doomsday scenario, nightmare scenarios. The only thing that would maybe do it is if, you had, and sorry, all the examples are bad. If you had a commissioner that said convinced or provided information that was not supposed to be had by the body, or some reason disrupted the proceedings, or did something like that, that's an extreme example. I don't think it's going to apply. But no, not necessarily. I'm trying to think of the scenario that would cause the conflict, and I can't come up with one readily.
Thank you, Stephen. Randy, are you okay?
I'm listening though. I've said my piece.
We're gonna,
Thank you.
I just think it's great having both. I feel like these guys have kind of given more feedback and information to us, and I love it. I think it gives a rounded, like, planning commission can just go off in the ethers of non-reality, and it's like, we've been tethered, I think it's nothing but good to have more participation from the commission.
okay. Rich, did you have something else to say? All right, Obie?
I've said my piece.
Thank
I
you.
guess from my standpoint, I like the feedback that we're getting from the two commissioners too, and I think, even little things like we're asking for money for land use code. So now we have two people who've sat through these meetings week after week after week, understand the need for it, and so we actually have advocates for things like that at the county commission. They can better explain the dilemma that we have if we don't go through these things.
Understand another.
Anyway, all right, so I don't know where we have to go with this one.
Well, we have to do, excuse me, ordinance for land use code text amendment to delete the strike through and
That's good.
add the underline.
So since that's a land use code, it would have to be a hearing.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we've got mostly agreement on that, I guess. We've got a second one here, and maybe the thing to do is to roll both of them into one motion. Is that what you had in mind?
Yeah, and then I think also on the, we'll have to figure out on the term of office as well, if
Yeah.
that's updated in state code,
So-
so make that change.
I guess what we could do is, let's talk through the second part of this, which is, Andrew will explain, it's what term B1, no, it wasn't B1, what was?
So we have D on that first page, just D, jump from A, B to B.
Yep.
And that's the qualification, so if we want to address the qualifications, whether it's okay to require a voter or not.
Let's have that discussion now. We've had this in land use code, the fact that they have to be a registered voter of Grand County for at least 2 years. That's been unenforced. Andrew's found a way to enforce it via the application, because the applicant would have to attest that they meet those requirements. And so that will be corrected unless we decide that we want to make a change to that qualification. And I guess I'd like to.
The application doesn't require to come back.
Mhm.
So let's just go around the room one more time, starting with Mary, and see if any of you have any desire to remove that qualification.
Remove the qualification for, the,
For the registered building motion.
yeah, I don't think it's problem to add it to the application. I think it's probably a good idea, because it's actually something that comes from state code too. So I would agree to have it on the application, or the staff looks into it every time.
Sarah?
Okay, so is it in the state code that the person needs to be a registered voter? Oh, then why would we
So then we really don't have any choice.
differently than that?
Any objection to just moving ahead with adding it to the application?
I have one quick question. Is it in the state code that it has to be 2 years?
I don't know, because once again, there was an update in the, what is it, the county rules and procedures, which is Title 17, that whole thing moved over, so we're looking at the wrong state code here. So I don't want to make any kind of like firm grasps that it's 1 year, 2 years.
I can.
Is it 43 that
Go
moved
ahead,
over to?
It's
I was trying to look that up.
we moved to 79,
Feel it.
but it's at C one, it says members shall serve 4-year terms until their successors are appointed and qualified. 2, notwithstanding the provisions of 4C1, members of the first planning commission shall be appointed so that each commission, the term of at least one member and no more than 2 members shall expire each year. Now that talks about the first planning commission, so we're still that first one.
So the section, it's still got 1779-301. This is in the 2025 version.
Okay.
And you're just looking at D, sorry, I skipped your number. For DI, each member of the planning commission shall be a registered voter residing within the planning advisory area. So that doesn't indicate for how much time prior. It doesn't have any information about that, but they have to be a registered voter.
And the reason I was asking that is it's not a very strong preference. I think they should be a registered voter and a resident. I don't think it has to be 2 years. And one of the reasons for that is anybody can claim, well, I'm a resident. I've moved in, I'm gonna be here for 3 months unless it's somehow a permanent resident of some kind. So I think having the qualification that they need to be a registered voter sounds like you're gonna have to anyway. For a year would be sufficient for me, but I wouldn't die if it was 2 years.
All right.
So maybe I would, I'm getting old.
So here's the question is, do we want to change this? It currently says that resident and registered voter of Grand County for at least 2 years. So I guess with that being the question, let's just walk around one more time. Mary, do you have any?
I think it just should follow state code. The 2-year membership is that big a deal, because if they're not interested, they're not gonna come to the meeting anyway, and they won't be here. So,
In favor of just scratching the 2-year? They don't care either way.
I don't care either way.
Sarah?
Oh my gosh, I'm so new to this. I don't know how to think about these
Just
things
give it a
yet.
hand.
I'm trying to think of a scenario where, someone who's so new to Moab, they've only been here for 6 months would want to give this. Or, I don't know. I guess I like the 2 years just because I feel like they have a little bit of an investment in the community. I guess that's my opinion right now.
And that's exactly how I feel about it. When you're invested in the community, you've been a registered voter for 2 years, you at some semblance understand what you're voting for should, and you're vested in the community to a very small degree. But at least you have those 2 years. You say, look, I vote here, I have a right to help or change things, and that's great. That's why I think it's in there. That's why I think the state has registered voting. 2 years again, I don't know about, but it seems very reasonable to me. So I would support that. If I might have a quick point of order to revisit my other comments, I had to think about them a minute. on the first thing and respect to both of these commissioners. Let's say that commissioner wants to bring something to the board, to this board, one commissioner or the other. We have two, and they vehemently disagree with how that setting is set up. That's where we get in trouble with two liaisons. And I can promise you that hasn't happened. Will it? I don't know. But if it does, ergo, why one liaison is the ticket. Too many cooks in the kitchen is going to spoil it. So if they come in here and they're very strong-minded, and I think they are because they're both commissioners, and they should be. I'm not vying for either or. What I'm saying is, them as a board has appointed whoever they appointed to this board, and that's how it should be. And the reason is, if they both want something that's opposite of what's being put in front of us, that is an unfair task for us to deal with. And they're pushing an agenda. I don't know that. I'm not saying they are, but if that case ever came up, they've handicapped this board unfairly because they are commissioners. They're our boss. They give us direction. If they disagree in that direction, they should do it in their realm, not my realm. And that's a possibility that I would like to say, no, thank you.
Okay.
That's how I saw that. Thank you for allowing me to bring that point up. Thank you.
Aaron,
I just wonder about, being a registered voter can be hard for some people, because of the transient nature of living in Grant County. That's my only concern, but at the same time, I'm kind of okay with it.
that part, just to clarify, is in the state code.
Yes, no, I know.
The 2 years is not.
Right, and resident, yeah, so, but I think, there should be some standards, sure.
Then, okay.
2 years is fine with me, and I'd only say that it is this interesting balance when the two commissioners disagree, and maybe even strongly. I think Baron might agree, it's probably in some ways very informative to us. I guess I don't quake at either one of them. I don't happen to agree with their stance, but it's nice to hear the two sides for me.
So why don't we just do a quick show of hands on these two, and then I'm gonna make another suggestion with what Mary brought up, just to keep the administrative workload down. I'd suggest we table this one if in fact it's approved by us, until Andrew and Stephen work out the details of this other more or less administrative change to bring us into compliance, and then do one hearing for both.
Yeah, it's the code section, the updated version of the code section does require that two individuals don't expire at the same, not more than two. So it's probably going to be a really interesting way.
Yeah.
That's
For having commission for planning advisory area,
Okay.
I think which might be different than.
We'll
our regular one, but
Yeah, we'll look into
let's talk with Bart and everything on, because they do have those mountainous areas.
Yeah.
And they have different, because it does say planning commission for a planning advisory area.
Either way, we'll look into it and follow.
Okay, let's do that.
I should say one other thing. I was not saying that Randy would quake. I don't think he would.
I didn't get it.
I didn't think he did, but I want to make sure.
Okay.
All right, so let's just do a show of hands on moving forward with this after completion of the work that Andrew and Stephen are doing. All those in favor?
Sure.
And then let's also have a show of hands on moving forward or on leaving. I guess it looks like consensus is to leave the 2 years on there. If we can have a show of hands, and then we'll bring this back and do a review again once they're done, where we can take a motion to do it here. So leave 2 years on. Okay, looks like unanimous. All right, so were you able to keep up with how we
Yep.
had?
Got it.
And Chair, I'm gonna be rude and leave.
Okay, you're not being rude. Thanks for your support.
Of course.
And just on that, since there's quite a bit more that's in the 79 right here as well. So Andrew, you might want to go through and make sure that, because there's a couple of other things up above that are in there in the appointment on the 79, so we're looking at the newer code. And then also we have to consider that
we're dealing with first planning commission. So the language that you guys brought up about the succession of the years deals with the first planning commission. It does not deal with, it says notwithstanding subsection 4C1, right, which is members shall serve 4-year terms and until their successors are appointed and qualified. So you might want to go ahead and look into that.
And that's a planning commission for planning advisory area, so you look at that, there are certain mountainous areas that have their own planning commission, so I think that's what it's relating to. Because it doesn't say planning commission, it's planning commission for a planning advisory area. Has to have that staggered term with.
The staggered term actually says for the term shall, till successors are appointed and qualified, notwithstanding the subsections of 4C1.
But which code?
Members of the first planning commission shall be appointed so that each commissioner, the terms of at least one member and no more than 2 members expire. The registered voters is
But
for.
that's not the, that's.
That's section.
You know, we-
Yeah, she's reading.
We don't even need
It's on the
to
state.
do this. We have a really good legal team that can
And,
take care of it. And we have a couple, we do have a couple other important things we need to go through today. The next one is water use and preservation element, and that was in the meeting packet.
We have extra copies if people want them.
And what that is
There are changes from the previous copies.
Yes. Oh, not from the packet, they just looked in the packet, but there are changes in the last session.
Why don't we start with, and let's start with Andrew on that first, and then Opie is asked to give him some comments as well. So, Andrew, why don't you take the floor?
I've got one.
And maybe start with summarizing what's changed since the last.
Okay, so on page 1, which not the cover or the page behind the cover, but the next page. You have introduction, then you have 2 Grand Canyon water profile, and then there's 2.1 system overview. I met with the Arches Special Service District, and Brian, can you please correct me if I misunderstood what they said? They said the Arches Special Service District mainly just provides sanitary sewer within its area, and that the quality of water is sourced from private shares of the Colorado River. And then there's a couple of other people who have some wells there, but the 2 hotel properties and Canyonlands by night and day are served by the private shares coming out of Colorado. That's what they said to me.
That is correct. Yeah, they're a special service district to administer that.
Yeah, perfect. And so I just made those changes to identify that. I think we have a couple. Let's see. Also on page 1 in the introduction portion, there's third sentence on that first introduction, Glen Canyon Aquifer and the Valley Fill Aquifer, which will be page 2. I changed the spacing between the first and 2 paragraphs in 2.2. Page 3, 5. In there it talks about the last sentence, these reduction scenarios, and we took out the word reduction and just said these scenarios, because one isn't a reduction scenario, it's a as is scenario.
You're just.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, so.
We'll just have, before you go on in that introduction, the county primarily depends on groundwater from the Glen Canyon Aquifer and the Valley Fill Aquifer.
Yeah.
What about Thompson?
He has a section on Thompson.
I know, but I'm just wondering if we want to specifically say the county. Because I mean, I think a lot of times when we say the county, we specifically think of Spanish Valley, but the county is a lot larger than just Spanish Valley. So it's.
And they're well, right?
No, Springs.
There's Springs, Thompson's, Thompson Spring.
I'll add in Thompson Springs.
You gotta find that particular.
Yeah.
And if we aren't talking about just Spanish Valley, certainly Castle Valley is by the Cattle Valley. Yeah, sole source aquifer, basically.
It's all wells, yeah. There was a spring.
We could take that sentence out of there, just leave that.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea,
we can
because
take
then
that.
you get,
Then we're not
open a
gonna.
can of worms, yeah,
Exactly.
that's a good idea.
Sure.
Yeah, then you're talking, what goes on is this
You
good.
just wanted that sentence, just take it out.
We're on 2.2.
Now, this is under one, introduction, move to,
Oh, I see, yeah.
this the third, or second sentence down.
We got this primarily from that whole sentence, that's a good idea, Brian.
Does anybody have any objection to that?
Especially because all those things pop up in the section.
It is, I mean, I'm looking at 2.1, I'm not
No, we're-
disagreeing with this, if I'm understanding this in 2.1, it says the groundwater service. Sewers and Service Agency provides drinking water and irrigation water to Spanish Valley. And nearby unincorporated areas of Grant County, so I think it was referring to
yeah, we're.
their water that they supply.
Paragraph above that,
Of that,
second sentence in the paragraph above,
Okay.
introduction.
yes, okay,
And it's.
got it, gotcha.
In the rest of the
Yeah.
document, so just take that
Okay.
out there. 2.2, change the spacing in those two paragraphs. Okay,
I'm just wondering in 2.1, and this is OB, maybe you have some, I mean, we give this water profile, and we do talk about Gwissa and Thompson and Arches and Cisco, and we don't talk about Castle Valley.
yeah, we don't talk about Moab either, because we're only have jurisdiction over that.
So yes,
Cities.
that
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then on page 3, paragraph 5, number 5, the very last sentence did say these reduction scenarios show how to conserve. Instead, we're saying these scenarios, so we're taking out the word reduction because there is a no reduction scenario. So the other ones that comparing the one with no reduction to the others that do have reductions, that's how we come up with this, but not all three of them are reduction scenarios. And then,
So sorry.
Sure.
Can we go back to 2.2 for a second? Have you already gone to, sorry. Are you okay with that? Oh, sorry, Jerry. Can you go back? I mean, I think, I don't know if we've already discussed this, but I just struggle with, kind of this whole, the second paragraph and the key actions. And I guess I struggle with that because, well, I struggle with it because we're not gonna get Colorado River water, but beyond that, that's just my personal opinion, but beyond that, to me, it goes against when we go back to the sole purpose of this and we look at A, B, C, and D, it doesn't align with that at all. I mean, you're talking about water conservation efforts, you know, what we need to do to eliminate wastewater, et cetera, and so on. And then all of a sudden, we completely take a hard right turn and start talking about developing new water sources. So I'm not opposed to something, you know, the first paragraph is fine. But I think the second one really goes against what the purpose of this.
And you're
Yeah,
talking,
so-
specifically, you're talking about the second bullet under key actions.
Well.
Is that right?
So this is a preservation, this is a preservation document. And so one of the ways that we preserve is we conserve, and then another way that we preserve for water for the future is to,
Well,
I guess, to prove up the rights that we have, right?
well, I really struggle with the word preservation. I mean, it totally goes against this entire document, but that's what came out of the state legislature. So that's fine.
Yeah.
They don't understand what preservation means.
Yeah, you can
I'll say
talk to
that,
me.
but-
I think they're pretty good.
Senator Miguel about that.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about it, but, okay, anyways, I'm gonna push back on that, but it's fine if it goes to the planning commission, but I just don't feel like it fits in this document at all.
And which one, I'm still not sure exactly what you're talking about.
Well, I would say the whole second paragraph, and then pretty much
So
all of.
what does that second paragraph say at the beginning? Because I'm looking at it online and it's probably a little different than what you.
Oh, maybe it's not.
Does it
Just to
start-
reduce reliance on groundwater by developing water infrastructure from the Colorado River, and then it goes on to kind of talk about all that, and I guess.
I'm still not exactly sure where you're at. Can you show me on that?
Oh, sorry, 2.2.
Yeah, got 2.2 sources and recharge.
Yep,
And you're in the second
in the
paragraph.
second paragraph.
And which sentence?
I mean, I would get rid of the whole second paragraph, and then, but these are just my opinions, and then the key actions,
I'd vote to keep it. And you don't have a vote.
Randy, you don't have a chance in here in a minute.
How's that?
Let's
I
let's get
was
Trish's
just
comments on.
giving my opinion. Again, I think when you go back to the sole purpose of this element, I felt like, I just feel like it goes against the purpose of what this legislation is supposed to
And,
do, but that's my opinion.
it's probably wouldn't be a bad idea to review the purpose too, because I think that's right on, it's on what page 2?
Well, there is this disclaimer on water data and assumption. I've said some of these things that Trish has said, but then I've also said, if we're gonna open it up to water sources, then we ought to open it up to quality of water. Kind of argument, if this is gonna be, broadened out. So in some ways, I'd kind of think, well, new sources aren't included in A, B, C, or D, although maybe in D, opportunities of the county to modify its operations to eliminate practices or conditions at wastewater. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it fits, but if we're going to do it, I'm going to, of course, put a request that we do something about protecting water quality, which I think is very important for the development of the county.
So in OB, we had, regarding letter D there, we've had a conversation in the last meeting about, I mean, in my mind, the 8% wastewater today, that's in the table down below.
Yes.
I think that specifically addresses that 8%, but man, it's a huge number.
Yeah, and I think we talked about modifying it and some other modifying language, but we might not have gotten to it yet. We're stuck a little earlier.
Yeah.
So
what you're saying, Trish, is your concern is that that second paragraph specifically does not fall under the sole purpose of this element.
Yeah, that's my concern. And then all these actions about, infrastructure surrounding the Colorado River, and yeah, I don't think that's the purpose of the legislation, but.
So I guess what you're saying is that really talks about expanding supply. And what we're supposed to be talking about in this, in order to fulfill that specific Utah code, is water use and preservation component that only addresses those four things. And,
That's just my opinion. I won't keep barking on it. I'm done.
okay.
And Senator McKell's a busy guy, but I could probably talk to him and see what his perspective is on, because he's the one who originated the legislation.
Well, so noted.
Yeah, I understand.
If anybody has a heartache with leaving that in, any member of the commission. Sir?
I guess, my question is, why are we taking 8 pages to say what, we could say it too? Like, if we just literally do what the state asks for, it's like 2 pages. I don't know, I'm all
Oh,
for
that's
less
good
words
context
rather
there.
than more, but I don't, like I said, I don't know enough, like, do we need to put the whole water profile? Is that necessary like in government? Or do we just, the state asks for A, B, C, and D and let's give them A, B, C, and D?
Yeah, so in the ones that they have identified, like the Linden system and a few others that have prepared them, they said this is kind of what we want to see.
Okay.
They have those in there. So
Like an introduction and a profile and the background and a, okay,
is a chapter of the general plan. It's not just a bulleted list,
okay.
but it's the actual chapter in the general plan. And the ones that they provided for us say, this is what we like to see. Those follow this.
Okay, so we're writing this for the general plan and also to comply with the state.
Right, yes, the state code says you need to put a chapter to put in addresses these things.
And I would say my argument is if we're going to expand kind of the basic things that supposedly need to go into it from the state, then I would like to consider water quality in addition to water quantity. But I'll make that argument later as to why I think it's actually important for us to do that. And I see a hand over there too.
All right, Brian.
So getting back to the original point on that, right? One of the preservation's principles that I think is being missed is the best use of water, right? And that is one of the state's requirements. Best use of water would be to have clear water be used for culinary and to have Colorado River water used for agriculture, right? That's what we're talking about moving forward into. Second on this as well, if we look at the projections on the people right there on the next page and the demand on the acreage fee. I think that those are less reasonable than what we're talking about this infrastructure. Town of Moab has been, 5,000 people for the 25 years that I've been here. And the town or the county has been about 10,000 people. We haven't seen the growth that is projected on these baseline projections. So I do think that it's important that when we talk, that we talk about all of our resources, even the ones that we haven't developed yet.
And on those scenarios, I think that you may have actually done it. I wanted to add these scenarios of the total water demand and not supply of water that will be available, because that says there may be less water available, even though we are increasing what we save if we had the same amount of water. So but that may already be in there.
I just have it as these scenarios show how conservation can keep total demand stable despite population.
Yeah, and I think I wanted added somewhere in there, these scenarios are for total water demand, which they are, and not the supply of water that will be available. They're basically saying if we have the same amount of water and we save a bunch of water, we're going to be able to supply more people with water, but we may not have the same amount of water. If you believe we are going through a list, we'll say a prolonged drought.
I would call it aridification. I think we're beyond drought. That's I would say aridification of the Intermountain Planet.
And part of the state gets to choose that. That's where the state comes in and says how much water.
So, Toby, to your point,
Yeah.
I was reading through this again today, and there actually is There's a paragraph right in the front underneath disclosure or disclaimer.
Yes.
Then there's this document should not be used for any other purpose. Go to the second one underneath that, and it starts with these assumptions are intended.
Okay, these are something.
And I think that kind of handles what you're
Back.
talking about.
She wants, I feel like that's fine. If the graphs weren't there, I'd say that's fine. The graphs kind of indicate same amount of water, look at the population we can support. But I'm just saying, you add a note that says these are based on that assumption. And if that assumption means you have the same amount of water, I think those graphs, mean that somebody could look at those graphs and say, gee, we're really in good shape. But if we have a 20% reduction in water, which I believe is about what we've had over the last 25 years, then those scenarios are too optimistic. So I just thought we would add something.
Sure.
Okay.
I think that's kind of is addressed with B and C on that page as well, because we have methods of reducing water demand and per capita consumption for future development and methods of reducing water demand and per capita consumption for existing developments. And so that is kind of what they want with this preservation element, is to look at those scenarios about if we reduce water, what would be the impact on the demand for water. And we do that with that. So what you're saying is maybe to have no growth.
Just a very small note that says this is based on the assumption that we have the same amount of water.
Yeah.
You know, I agree. If we can reduce the use of water by 20%, and we have the same amount of water we have now, we can support 20% more folks, but not if we're having a ridification or something else that limits water.
Because I don't think that's part of.
Basically, OB, what you were saying is these scenarios, Andrew's note here says these scenarios show how conservation can keep total demand stable despite population growth.
Yeah.
But what you're also saying is there's another element here, which is these scenarios are not a guarantee of the availability of water.
And those can be put just
And that could be
under the table 1 and food 1 and all text there. We can.
I would like that very much.
Just doesn't guarantee that there will be a certain specific amount of water available.
So does anybody have any objection?
No, and the whole action is if we really want to add 40% to our water supply on the current water we got, put it in a pipe, get it out of the creek.
And that goes beyond our scope here today.
I understand. But let's not get crazy today. I think that's a fair statement. I'll go with you on that.
Thank you, Randy.
All right, no objection.
You and me around the days.
So Andrew, if you could add that, then do you need a repeat of it or you pretty well?
What is it?
Next page.
Then I think we had, Andrew, why don't you just keep walking through item by item from OB's note on this?
On page 7, there's a table there, and there's a third column, second row, keep system-wide use below 214 gallons per capita per day, maintain leak loss below 8% of production, and Commissioner O'Brien asked to include in there work through both of them.
Like it.
And those are the ones that I was asked to put in there last time. There's additional, I think there was maybe some additional wording that O'Brien had, but those are the ones that everybody accepted.
Okay, and now so is that the last of the changes?
From our last meeting, which includes also the meeting I had with Arches.
So now we are on to the last item in OB's list, which is, actually, what-
Yeah, do you have extra copies?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's passed, when it gets around. I'll steal some of your copies.
basically, whatever you want to. Basically, what this, and all these comments for those of you that have a memory as bad as mine. We're basically saying, most important, given our long back and forth, I believe agreement for the draft. Please add this to the start of section 2.2, replacing existing first paragraph. And there were two sections. Actually, do you want to just read through that and then go into your
Well, why don't I go into my explanation and then I'll come back to read that, but basically it was saying, basically what I want to do is to go and discuss at some point here, protection of the two sole source aquifers. I brought this issue up over a year ago and made some presentation to the the planning commission here. And I just want to go over the rationale for doing that, and then ask that, yes, we make a little, we put it on the agenda. That's what I want to do. And one way to do that is to get it into the general plan, which is, I guess, what getting water out of the Colorado River does, or make it something that we do during this kind of looped land use code update process. So before you should have these wonderful two maps. I'm going to just take 10 minutes maps on this. So we have these two sole source aquifers. What does it mean to have a sole source aquifer? It means that the EPA came in, there's 3 of these, by the way, in all of Utah, came in and they said, hey, you know, over 50% of your supply of drinking water for your area comes from these 2 aquifers, or each of the aquifers separately. And there's no viable alternative source. So this is where we get our drinking water. Now, you can see those 2 aquifers. What I did is include everything above the county line. You can see the county line on the very first top picture there. And there's the Glen Canyon aquifer, sole source aquifer, and there's the one for Castle Valley. And there's this little border that goes through. A little bit of it is probably Grandstaff Creek area, and the rest of it is, the water goes down 2 different watersheds here. You can see a big kind of gap between the 2 watersheds, and that does have to do with the Grandstaff area, which is its own watershed. Water comes down there. It's not part of either of these 2 sole source aquifers that supply drinking water for a population. Then we have the down below, basically what Andrew sent, which is the Utah Drinking Water Groundwater Protection Zone that exists in Grand County. It is a very big part of the Glen Canyon sole source aquifer, my estimate, which meant putting these 2 pictures over each other at some point. But I'd say that's about 1/3 of all of the Glen Canyon aquifer. And some people may say, hey, but you put some land use code in there and you're going to stop development. Mary'd be much better than me on this because she knows this stuff. But I mean, this goes up in the golf course and there's area up above it. There's all kinds of areas where within what is now this groundwater protection zone that are developed, and we would consider them developed, but they have to follow the rules that are in the water source protection overlay zone that we have. Okay, I'm going to be like Brian. I'm going to keep things off so I really get all my points down. I just want to say that note that the EPA, when they do their sole source aquifers, they don't just do the part that's down near town and where the wells are. They actually believe that the whole source aquifer needs protection, but it doesn't get a great deal of protection. Here's basically what happens. If there is a project that receives federal funding in the sole source aquifers, the EPA can look at it and say, oh my goodness, it might harm the aquifer, and say you can't spend federal money for a federal project. This is not what the kind of protection that we have from the groundwater protection zones, our WSPO legislation that the county said this is what we're going to do for our groundwater on the Spanish Valley side. You'll also see that there's hardly anything. This is probably what got me started as a resident of Castle Valley. There's hardly any blue marks for the protected part of the Castle Valley aquifer. And the reason is on this side, they have giant companies that pipe water to your door. And on our side, we have a bunch of individual wells. And to get the state protection for your watershed, you need to, and then I always forget, I should ask an expert like Janae, but I can never remember, but it's like for 80 days a year, you supply water to 60 people. And over in Castle Valley, we have a
Let's
church.
just say you have to meet the state standards as a public water service and for drinking water, and Castle Valley's wells do not do that.
Yeah.
Would you just mention your name just for that?
Yeah. Arnie Holquist and Janae Wallace. This morning, I made a presentation at our Water Advisory Committee, and Janae, who worked for the UGS for years, said, oh, is it okay if I come and hear this? The water experts said at some point, we may or may not call upon. So we have very little protection. And here's going to be my request, and then I'm going to get to some of the reasons for this request. I'll probably reword it. It'll probably be something like Grand County should consider land use codes that protect water quality in both of the sole source aquifers. And that can either be for the general plan or during the land use code update. For instance, right now we have range and grazing in all of that area, and here are conditional uses that we allow, conditional uses, but we all know that people can often meet the conditions. You could have an asphalt or concrete batch plant in our sole source aquifers. Production water and recycling facilities of that, I guess, recycling facilities for that production water. Public landfill, waste storage, treatment disposal, oil refineries or processing. At the very minimum, we might consider looking at these two sole source aquifers and making some rules that say, oh, in this overlay, maybe we shouldn't allow that. Here's the kind of protections you get from the state. I'm not saying all of these protections we should do, but I think we should consider them. So the protection zones for the state, which aren't in our, WSPO, we simply say we follow the protections for the state. Hazardous waste storage, underground storage tanks, landfills, manure powers, animal feeding lots, storage of chemicals, hazardous waste, commercial pesticide application, mining and milling. So there's a list of things that you can imagine we might consider doing. This is, of course, not the time. I'm not saying we should approve watershed protection, water source protection overlay right now. I'm just simply saying I think we need to consider, and we need to get it on the agenda time-wise. When I first talked about this, I think I went with Trish. We met with Don Stenta, who was the county engineer, and we said, yeah, this would be a thing that we ought to bring up at some point. And when I did this a year and maybe almost a year and a quarter ago, it was, well, let's do this, but we're going to get the land use code update done really quickly. And of course, we haven't done anything on it basically.
Well, actually, we have Andrew will update the latest status.
Oh, that's gonna be very good. I'm going to get informed of that. So basically what I'm proposing is if we are going to kind of expand this to, I think that might be a good idea to have Colorado River water used as secondary water and the kind of drinking water that we have be used for drinking water, that we also try to have some protections for this sole source aquifer that really has none except for the protection zones that are down near, well, you can see where it is on kind of the edge of Spanish Valley. So that's the proposal. And I
So-
never taught that.
So Obi, do you want to give us just kind of a short summary of exactly what you would like to see added to this?
Well, I can't and I can. I mean, I could say things like but I think this is a thing for much bigger discussion. So what I would love to do is get together with Andrew, get together with people that have better expertise in water than I do, look at other places, and then try to bring something together that we discuss as we would do any land use code update going down the list saying, yeah, I don't know about that. That's going to violate, people's property rights in a way that's not so important in terms of protecting the watershed. What could I do almost immediately? I could say, I don't want production water and recycling facilities
But I think,
up in the watersheds.
I think just to clarify, I
Yeah.
think what the path you're going down is somewhere like 4.5, I think is WISPO, right?
Yeah, it is along these lines, but I think everybody.
But we're not gonna amend this document with a bunch of things for 4.5.
No, we're gonna,
What we're
yes,
looking for is something to add to this that says
yes,
we should consider
yes.
this.
I had a paragraph that was, I said, which could be put, for instance, after the introductory paragraph in I think it's section 2.2, and it said something, I'll replace it, it said something like the following. The two major aquifers in Grand County that supply drinking water are the Glen Canyon Aquifer and the Castle Valley Aquifer. Both of these aquifers are designated by the EPA as sole source aquifers. Only one other aquifer is so designated. Actually, only one other aquifer in Utah is so designated. Protecting these drinking water sources of drinking water are crucial for Grand County, and then following the key actions about bringing water and key action. And I think I would probably modify that key action to say Grand County should consider land use codes that protect water quality in both of these sole source aquifers. I would prefer to put during the land use code updating process.
Yes.
So that last part is the specific part that we should have a discussion here. And we generally what we do in a public hearing is get citizen comments. If we don't get them during the planning commission discussions, I guess
It's not
I'd
a
have to
dialogue
ask.
with you. I'm not here. You can't have a dialogue with
Hang on,
me.
let me get Andrew's opinion on this. Citizen comments during the,
It's up to.
up to the chair. Okay, I just asked you to keep it to,
3 minutes?
how about two?
The majority of the land that you're talking about that's in the sole area protection is owned by the Forest Service and the BLM. The Forest Service has put in their planning to keep that aquifer protected, and it's pretty much written in there. I believe the BLM field office has also written something in there, and they would not lease property for oil development in that sole source aquifer. So the majority of the land that you're dealing with should already be protected through the BLM's planning document and the Forest Service document. So the only land that you're talking about right now is private land and settler land. That would be the only point I would like to make at this point in time.
Thank you.
And I believe that to be true now, and Sitla might say, and they would say, we don't have to follow land use planning laws of the county. However, my understanding is they've never done that. That's my understanding. That we'd have to check on, but that's what I've heard.
All right, so specifically, basically what OB is asking is that we add another key action in here that states that, basically, I wanted to say that again.
I'll get that.
That's the bottom here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there it is. The Grant County should consider, and I will give you this in full, Grant County should consider land use codes that protect the water quality in both of these sole source aquifers during the current land use code updating process.
Okay, so that's what we're discussing is whether or not we have that as a key action in section 2.2. I guess why don't we just go around the room again since we heard from OB already, Mary?
I support it.
I kind of expected that.
I support it. I think OB's been working really hard on this document and probably has a better understanding of it than I do. I mean, I have an understanding of land use code, but this particular section, I totally agree because I think we can put that stuff in our land use code. We're going to get a new one, so you'll have the opportunity to put what we needed in there at that point. It's exactly what you're asking for, a new update. I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Sarah?
I have several thoughts about this. I went back and watched the planning commission meeting. When you first brought this up, it was almost exactly 1 year ago. And I thought Aaron brought up a really good question, which I'm adopting, which is what are the unintended consequences of putting something in, right? Like now are we, so that's my first question is what are the unintended consequences that we're not seeing as far as people who own property, businesses, things like that? That's my first thought. And the second one is the language of it, it feels funny. It feels like in this what is this called? Chapter, this element, we're like telling ourselves what we should be doing instead of just doing it. So there's something about how you worded it that I was like, it just doesn't sound, it sounds like we're telling ourselves what we should be doing. Which feels.
This, I think, Mary, I mentioned earlier tonight, before the meeting started, that I found your name on a document from 2010, which dealt with WISPA, the section 4.5. And that it gave me a little view into what kind of effort was put into something like that.
I mean, for the actual process of,
Yeah.
it is, it's still in, and we have it in the land use code.
Yes.
So it's already there. Just to give you an example, Joyce Robertson's development has, I think, close to 2 acres that has a city well on it. And when she developed her land, that was part of her open space. Generally, within a PUD, you're required to provide open space, and in order to do a PUD over a water protection area, that's what you're doing. You're protecting the water protection area. And now the city owns that parcel of land, so she didn't have to pay taxes on it. The city hadn't decided to own it. The golf course has a couple of city wells that they protect. There's a big protection just past the golf course that's now the Frisbee course, and they've got it all fenced out. I remember when our weed guy went out there to spray some noxious weeds, he was told to stay away from it because you're not allowed to spray anything within a well protection area. And that's because it is an actual well. I've never had a developer have problems with providing what's in this, but we don't have, there's not that much development in it for that part, for the most part. The gentleman here was talking about when it's mostly BLM and Forest Service. And he's right, they would not allow the issues that were brought up earlier about a gravel pit. I don't even bring gravel up there anyway. So it's never been a big issue. It was never a big issue. Everybody that's had to deal with it, the engineers are the ones that find it. We don't, the county, the planning office doesn't say, hey, that's right here. They have engineers on both sides, the developers and the counties that help develop that. It's not something.
And it's kind of what just to clarify for Sarah's question, I just wanted to give a view of a snapshot of what kind of effort goes into the level of detail that you're looking for. Obviously, looking to add a statement in there that says we should take a look at this.
I might make it more declarative, because I think you're right. Maybe if it were as declarative as the other statements, it might say, develop land use codes that protect water quality rather than we should consider.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a more declarative statement, I guess.
So I guess my question is, why do we need it in here if we already have the WSPO? And if that is on the table for reform?
Can I answer that one?
Yeah, please do.
This is a general plan. And our general plan dictates what goes into it.
But we have it in the code already.
But we,
Because-
because
It's still going to be a new part. They're gonna add, just modify it.
Because if somebody comes in for a subdivision or a building permit, et cetera, they have to have a certificate from an engineer. If they're within that area, they have to provide that
And the
certificate.
sanitarian. That's the county or the state sanitarian.
I mean, I love clean drinking water. I literally am thankful for it in my prayers every day. I love clean water. But it doesn't have anything to do with that, but what are the unintended consequences?
So what you're talking about here is, there are two different things. Number one, should we have protection? And I think everybody agrees that's yes. Number two is, what kind of protection should we have? And that's what goes into land use code. And today, it's section 4.5. And if you haven't looked at that, you should.
Oh, I know, I have it pulled up and I think it's good that we have it in there and is it not sufficient, I guess?
And so, Sarah, here's the, if you look at this funny sheet here, that here the water source protection overlay zone right now covers this blue area at the bottom and these dots down here in Castle Valley, but not, this is where this is a big deal. Not these gigantic areas that cover the whole watershed. So it would be a big change. And then, of course, the question that Jerry is saying, yeah, the big issue is, what sorts of protections do we think we should have? And you are exactly right. It would, if you put some of these things in, like I'll just say, not having an asphalt plant on your property, which is now a conditional use, you mean that somebody cannot use their property to have that happen. Or if you say you can't have an underground storage tank that contains oil, they cannot do that unless they meet the criteria for the conditional use.
WISPO is even less specific. It says no underground storage tank. But Randy made a comment about that earlier. What that doesn't mean is that you can't have fuel storage. What that means is it can't be underground, and there are going to be requirements about containment if there's a spill and those things, right? So that's the kind of level of detail that we would be committing ourselves to working through if we add this.
Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
So it talks about, like, you have this map from the Utah Department of Drinking Water and our WSPO refers to that, right? And so this, if the Utah Division of Drinking Water is already monitoring it, why do we also need to monitor it?
They offer, I could tell you two things. One is they do not, the watershed, they protect certain sections of the watershed. If you were to take a look at the Castle Valley one might look at it and say, well, gee, why isn't the bottom third of that protected? Yeah, because it doesn't meet the state requirements on how the water is delivered. It's not delivered by WISA in our case, it's got a bunch of individual wells. Now, if they let us put circles around all of our wells, then we'd have more of a block down there. I would argue that the EPA would classify the entire watershed as an area that needs some protection. The entire watershed provides the water. I'm not arguing that maybe that some of the areas that are right near a gigantic well or spring, although some of the protections, well, yeah, so there are things that say you should you should, some things in the WSPO also just talk about springs, how far you have to be away from them to have certain developments, but none of that goes up to the upper watershed. Now, Arnie's comment is probably absolutely correct. There's not a lot of private property up there. There's some. So it does impact some people.
There's a bunch if you own it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and you
I
can
know those guys.
modify your, and in fact, Aaron probably talk this front than I can. Modify your sewage system so that you can put it on there and still meet the requirements of the code.
At what expense?
You want water?
That's the discussion,
I
right?
got a
there.
well.
And the thing is,
There
that
was one acre.
yeah, Randy,
That's it.
you're not, Sarah, the thing is, what this does is commits us to work on it. It doesn't go to the level of detail that we're talking about. And anyway, that's the answer to your question. Read through 4.5 and you'll see what's in there today, and I can only imagine the amount of effort that went into creating that part of the code. I'm sure it was big. Do you have any more
Is
questions?
it good to address a little bit of Sarah's?
Sure.
So in the code, the 4.5 deals with the water source protection overlay. And it says permitted uses are allowed in the WSPO district shall be specified in the underlying base districts. Right of that, all uses shall be conditional uses and may be allowed in accordance with provisions of 9.11. Uses constituting pollution sources is defined under the rules of drinking water division of state shall be denied. So it might be something where it says in range and grazing, you can have a confined feedlot, but that I would assume that's probably not permitted under the state drinking water.
Right.
And that's where, if that were to happen, the sanitation department, the state sanitation, come in and make make that requirement, probably would stay totally out of the counties. Because they have to be certified by the state too.
Any more, sir? That's a lot to do.
I have taken up a lot of time already. Then, I mean, should your statement be just more like we comply with the rules of the drinking water division of the state of Utah? Of the county, Grand County?
But the question really is what area does it? I mean,
Okay, so it's more about the area
It's
rather
about the-
than
yes,
the regulations
Yes.
necessarily.
yes, it's
Okay.
more about the area.
Yeah, yes.
It makes it.
And I looked at those online.
Basically.
Okay, let me think about that.
Yeah.
But what requirements we haven't decided on, we won't decide on
You could change.
until we have some document in front of us. And of course, then we will vet it and change it and vet it and change it probably. And it is work.
It's a lot different.
Yep.
All right. Is there anything else before we move on to?
No,
Randy?
please move on.
Randy, I know you've been waiting.
He keeps trying to get you to do stuff. Go ahead. I don't blame you. I don't know. I've been the landowner that's had that protections on me. Okay, then that land's still vacant. We could have 45 houses on it. It would have been fine, but these things happen. So I'm coming from a private property rights standpoint. Sarah's correct. What's 9.11?
It's actually the conditional use, it's not 9.
9.11 is for subdivisions.
Well, in this, it says section 9.11.
I know. Ten.
Well, I only have this information. It says all uses shall be conditional uses, all uses.
Yeah, 9.11 goes to some paragraph.
Constitutional taking, yeah.
Yeah, I think it.
Where is this? I couldn't find it. I looked, I couldn't find it.
It's
Yeah, well, it
conformity
does work.
and use code. So it requires conformity before the use code.
Uses- Consulting with pollution sources defined in the rules of drinking water division state of Utah shall be denied. Okay. 4.53 of the water source protection overlay text has another one, hydraulical study shall be required in the use of any use of land. So now I gotta hire an engineer and do a hydrology study. So affordable housing is going out the window pretty fast on this. And it could be reasonable if there's no harm to culinary water. Who decides that? What's reasonable? It's gonna be this board? Or is it gonna be somebody else? Then let's leave it to the state.
That's what it says.
That's a good idea. Let's just leave it to the state and quit fooling with it because it's a lot of time and effort. That's my opinion. I would never vote for it. Restricted or prohibited, the WST will protect all drinking water sources. There won't be any wells drilled, by the way. For all those cowboys that live up there, all developments shall be set back at least 100 feet from a normal high water line of any springs. On site, i.e. no septic systems or wells shall be permitted.
I think there's an unless in there.
There is.
There is, unless the applicant demonstrates. How does he demonstrate that? Who is he demonstrating
You're
that
talking
to?
about an engineered septic system at that point.
Sanitarian.
Let's file that one on there.
Sanitarians do
Okay.
the disposal systems. And
Yeah, I know what they are. Been through them. All sewer main services, which I don't have a problem with this one, under the rule R 39050551-6, all sewer mains shall be accepted and critical services provided by the ongoing operation and maintenance. You see why Castle Valley has a problem. They're a city.
Their town, yes.
You guys should get some commercial property, get some taxes, build a water source and a sewer plant. Cut your lots in half and sell them to everybody. You raise the money, everything's fine. Don't make the county keep protecting a town that has its own rules. In my opinion, that's what this does. It helps set that up. Additional conditionals may be established from at time to time development. Approval necessary to accomplish the purpose of the WSOP. Or WPO, I'm sorry. In that setting, again, we're trying to fix a rule book here that's been broken for a long time. Since Mary, and I know, I tried to use the rule book. And we went battle to battle over the rule book. Right now, what I want to see is, yeah, these are all wonderful things to debate about. But we've got the protection source in there. State of Utah says we got one. I understand it. I understand what you're trying to do, and I'm not having a real heartache about it, except for when I read the rules. And I go, whoa, there's no way I could vote for that the way it's structured. I know we have some protection zones. I've ran across them. I understand what they are. As a member of this board, I want to protect that private property rights guy that doesn't come to these meetings, doesn't know we're having them, and doesn't understand what Obi's doing. Can I use that name, Obi? Is that right? Everybody's calling you. I don't want to make sure I'm okay. You might be that guy. But these are great things to talk about, but I think this is, like you said, a much bigger discussion to have. And whether we lean toward it or not, I want to be very, very careful how we go in putting protection zones that take up so much land and so much private property, because we have so very little. When Mary mentioned a PUD has to have open space, are you kidding? In a county that's 94% public use. Really? Then let's make compromises where we can. But when we put something like this over private property, we've handicapped some ranches that run cattle, that round them up and feed them in those places. I've been there, push those cows. I know what they're doing. And I want to protect that as much as I do my water. Because we don't need water if we don't have people. Water can go down to Colorado, on down to California. If we don't take care of the people. And this is part of it, and thank you, I'm done. I yield.
Follow that.
Aaron,
Yeah, I think it's like really complicated. I kind of like full faded on all that going on. You know, I work with septic systems a lot. I'm level 2 septic certified. You know, unintended consequences, like what Randy's talking about is like now you need a level 3 system, and that is like on some of the, I don't know, like even I'm like, okay, we first had to have a septic system. Now we have to have a level 3 septic system on here, which is like the engineering costs and stuff he's talking about. But here's a counterpoint on this. Every septic, I just was at a septic tank, had it been cleaned in 25 years, bottom's blown out. No one knows where the top is. It's in blow sand. No one cares about their septic system. They put them in and they forget about them. And you go to Castle Valley, Orion and me talk about it all the time. Water's like, there's some problems over there. There's like contaminated water in Castle Valley. Like, and it's because people don't maintain their septic systems. They're made wrong, all that stuff.
There's,
No matter what you put those those things on there, it's gonna happen. And I've seen it. And so like, I'm kind of like, man, we don't even protect the water well enough when we do like these state or things to a level. My other things with this was, one, I could not view this packet in time to kind of prepare for this, so I'm kind of like blindsided. The things I kind of see in here, I kind of see what Trish was saying, like we have this A, B, and C, and D, and then we have the sources and recharge, and it seems centered on getting Colorado water. Great, get it. I also am like, look at this chart, and I see the point where it's like reduce reliance on groundwater. I'm like, okay, here's my thing. This is an honest question. From, I've talked to a couple people I think know more than water than me. And they said, if we put a straw on Colorado, we have a junior water right on there. And if there's a call on the river, we have a less water right. When I see how much irrigation water is being spent, it would make us to 2060 if we converted drinking water. And I know maybe the supply shrinks, but that's probably.
Irrigation.
Yes. Shouldn't we be more like self-sufficient and self-dependent than on the source that like it's in the newspaper every single day? I'm like, honestly, we're like, that's the one thing I'm like, oh, is that a good idea? Or should we, because this is a planning I mean, it's in the general plan, it's a planning document. Should we be kind of thinking about like being self-sufficient as long as possible? Or and get the Colorado water so we can irrigate with it. And I don't know, it seems like a kind of a shell game, but it works, I guess. But I guess that was kind of my question, kind of blending what Trish was said with kind of a twist on it, where it's like, you know, the UMTRA water. I've heard things about like that going to Thompson, and like that's not in this plan, you know, like so like where is there, if we were to the sources and recharge, either toss it or expand it. I don't know. That's kind of like my 2 cents on it. Like, yeah, expand, like let's dive into this, because I think the most important thing on here is section 5. The county requires evidence of a sufficient water supply. Boy, I think that has huge implications in it. I'm like, what's that mean? Right? Like, that's why I was calling Gwissa and being like, hey, when are you guys coming out with that CERT study to be like how much water supply we have? Because I'm not clear on it. I'm trying to, you know, so I guess that's kind of my input into it. Bob's thing, I'm kind of confused on it. Honestly, it seems so complicated. You know, and I hear all the, I mean, like, I'm sympathetic to, you know, personal property rights. Like, oh, you know, like you can't put septic tank in. What do you can put your RV there, and then even that's against the land use code. So like, you know, like it is what constitutes like takings at this point. So that's kind of things, you know.
Could Chris give you a date of when thought they would have some.
They thought it was coming up pretty soon, like this weekish. So like, but I kind of like, I started going to well, I went to one meeting and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. But yeah, that section 5, I mean, like, what's that mean to you, Andrew? Like you look at a subdivision, you're like, okay, so where's the evidence of water supply? You know?
It would require well served letters and so.
Yeah.
Gives them a well served letter. But yeah,
Yeah,
they did that in Las Vegas, but they didn't have the water that would give you the well served letters.
right.
That's what Cedar did also.
Right, and what I wanna know is, okay, they did, like, you got this one, but do you know how many more are left and all, like, that's what concerns me, cause I am not anti-development, I think we need a strategic plan for proper. Development so that the county can be like, okay. We need to do these things, so that's my 2 cents on it.
Thanks, Eric.
I think you should
It would be
filter
good-
your water and put a charcoal filter in any water source, that's my.
So I gotta apologize for the length of the meeting. But I think the discussion was good. And this is a typical Western issue, right? The West is just arid as can be, and if there's one thing that's gonna get people, I don't know, engaged in a conversation, I should say, it's gonna be water.
Whiskey's for drinking, water's for fun.
Where I struggle with what Obi wants to do is where Trish struggled too, and that is water quality is not in the goal here. For this, and this is state required, and we do have to get this thing out. That's the struggle that I've got. I had 3 options we can do here tonight. We can do a vote on OBs. The only thing that OB put in there that I think has any amount of debate with it really tonight was that one paragraph about we can do a vote on whether or not to include that. And I think mainly probably for Aaron and Sarah's sake, if we want to move further discussion on that to the next meeting, we can do that. That gives you more time to look into more of the background on this. Or we can, basically kick the can or vote on it tonight are the 2 options we got.
And let me, is there something of record that be read? Could you read Obi's, is there an amendment to this that Obi has?
I think
For the record?
let me try to, I will put, this is what I would consider the most mild of things.
Please
But
keep-
it's really pretty much what I said before. As a key action,
You're talking about at the bottom of page 2.
yes, in the document that we were working on water.
It's section 2.2 under
You can forget
key actions.
that, and of course, I didn't send it out, the WSPO. It simply would say, work on developing land use codes that protect water quality in both of the 2 sole source aquifers. And that would go in the general plan, just like key actions of working, cooperating and developing infrastructure. I don't have the wording in front of me. It doesn't mean a ton, except it means it's in the general plan, it's something that we ought to be considering. And that means, of course, I'll probably bring it up at some point. I ought to also add, it doesn't have to include the most restrictive of things. It can be using of refineries for production water, right? You can go down and cherry pick a list of things you say, really, this shouldn't be done in our aquifer. So this is basically the wording that I made is to say, let's work on trying to protect those 2 aquifers.
And Randy, as regards with your concerns, I think it's the concerns that they want people. The only thought I got about having OB's statement in there now is you've got a 4-year term coming up. And you'd have a chance to help tailor those. requirements.
It's not a lot about, I'm staying.
It might be better to have that in there now and work on it. From your perspective, be able to work on it with the finance committee or the commission.
So you're putting that in the general plan, so it has to be considered with the land use code update.
No, I didn't,
Signal.
I left that out of what I just said. Left it out. It just means.
It doesn't,
it-
when they
it-
review a general plan, when they review our land use code, the consultants will have to look at the general plan.
Yeah, yes, they could pull that out and say, this is something we should all be working on. And if we can't get very far with it, then you get some protections. Not,
Probably start with the simplest ones.
yeah, start with the simplest one, that they can get agreement on, so we can get moving on the land use code.
You can do a Google search and look at the one from 2010 and it's, I don't know, maybe I'm misreading the history, that maybe that looked like it was a pretty lengthy effort.
It was, but you also gotta realize the majority, and I was just trying to look them all up, couldn't find them. Majority of the district standards are state requirements, sanitation requirements. You know, our county wouldn't have anything else more to do for the most part. So it's not necessarily taking away people's property rights, it's protecting this water because the state says we have to. We're lower on the totem pole.
Right.
1 second. I mean, I just think adding a little something in there makes so way more sense. Again, I'm gonna go back to the title, water use and preservation element. Again, I struggle with this concept of preservation, but you know, when you look at the definition of preservation, keep safe, keep it in its original state. That's why I struggle with this. It should be called preservation, but whatever. Safe from damage and destruction. So to me, to put something in there about protecting our culinary water sources actually adheres to this, you know, this title where, you know, producing a bunch of infrastructure that doesn't have anything to do with what this element's about. But that's just my opinion. I do think, you
In
know.
a sense, you could look at the 8% waste as a
Yeah.
byproduct of poor infrastructure.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah. I think
Yeah.
it fits.
Yeah. That's all I'll say.
Anyway, would anybody object to having a vote on OB's paragraph now, or would anybody like to do more study on it?
Could you read that again? I was trying to jot down the exact word.
Now, I'll do it, try slowly. Work on developing land use codes that protect water quality in both of these sole source aquifers. That was assumed that there was a paragraph ahead of it. We could, you know, we could name the aquifers if we need to.
You can say the paragraph, why don't you just name it?
Yes, okay. Work on developing land use codes that protect water quality in the Glen Canyon sole source aquifer and the Castle Valley sole source aquifer. Just puts it on the future agenda.
Isn't this just a discussion tonight, though? This isn't a public hearing.
Yes,
Right.
the
So,
next step would be the public hearing.
yes, so I'm thinking that, yes, it's just still a discussion. And this information is going to get put into the next.
Right, that's what we're talking about right now, is do we put it in the next rev? And I'd like to at least get agreement from this group that
Yeah.
we should or should not do that. So how about if we just do a straw poll on that? Anybody, all those in favor of putting OB's paragraph in? Those opposed?
I'm such a bad voter.
If you're-
But you gotta do, that's part of the gig.
I know I'm
You're a commissioner. You gotta make decisions.
I probably wouldn't put it in there just because I feel like we've already got the state. I would probably vote no. I'll learn to be a good voter, I promise.
This is the idea for the next, so you
Wait till you're hard.
present idea.
So Sarah, it's your vote.
I have probably.
Don't
I
apologize.
probably wouldn't-
No.
Okay. All right. Well, so in that case, we've had 4 in favor. So Andrew had it. Now we would entertain a motion to have a public hearing on this. Unless there's more we needed to add, I don't guess there is.
I would move to have a public hearing on the water preservation element of Grand County General Plan with the amendment that Obi had put in.
And we need a second.
I'll second that.
March 23rd.
That's a good day.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right.
See how easy it is to move things forward when you make a motion. It's not, I don't want.
Thank you, everybody, for your conversation. That was
Tiring.
that was tiring, but important. Very important.
I have visited that material next to them. It might be good to send out people to percolate.
And then move it to next week's agenda.
Up to the chair without.
And I think everybody at this point is ready for that suggestion. So what Andrew suggested is that we take the handouts that he's gonna give us for the high-density housing and high-density housing overlay, and we study them over the next 2 weeks and have that discussion in our next meeting.
All right, that's easy.
Plus 3 large ones.
Well, I'm a big
One
man.
each of those plus 3 large ones.
And we can hand those out after the meeting is adjourned. Only have future considerations. And in future considerations, Andrew, maybe before you start unwrapping it, in future considerations, we have a major event that actually happened that will drive some future work, which is the RFQ, right? Can you give everybody a?
So it's been out for 2 weeks. We got the final questions back from consultants on Friday. And we have until Friday to come up with answers to those questions, but we can pick out those. And then I'll just wait for them to respond back with submittals.
So let's see, we have them scheduled, then, right? Yeah. Any other future consideration? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Yeah. Mary was
I wasn't quick enough. You got me.
Mary and Sarah. Mary, made the motion, Sarah.
You said there's 3 of these?
There's 1 each of those, and then I've got 3 large maps.
I love watching. Maps are good. Ooh. So you actually moved 45 to 35, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
So we're not talking about 45 anymore, we're talking about 35.
35 is already in there.
It's in there.
Yeah.
The ain't seen me that old. Fine.
That's yours if you want, because that's.
I mean, all that.
It's not being deep, that's the trouble. And I'll take it, just 2 you need to get.